Again, it just tells the story of it's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days is everywhere.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Boom. I'm a mess. So good morning, everybody. Let's take a look really fast at some of the information that's coming out about what happened last night with Donald Trump. Oh, lordy, guys. Lordy.
Communication with members of law enforcement, but that definitely will be looked into. And if that is the case, it definitely
I'm going to follow
some more light on how he was.
I'm going to follow some of these updates today. I know that we are expecting, if I remember correctly, we are looking for an update from officials.
They can still have a gun, which is in some ways somewhat adjacent to this venue where the RNC is being had. And that is, of course, only going to add to the concerns from security officials here.
All right, Jay O'Brien in Milwaukee for us. Thank you. And finally, we have some sad news to report. ABC News has confirmed actress Shannon Doherty has died. Doherty had been battling stage 4 breast cancer after being diagnosed in 2015. Just 8 months ago, she revealed the cancer had metastasized to her brain and later spread to her bones. The actress rose to fame in 1990, playing Brenda Walsh on the hit show Beverly Hills 90210. She also starred in the supernatural drama Charmed as Prue Halliwell. Shannon Doherty was 53 years old. Thanks for streaming with us. I'm Diane Macedo. ABC News will have much more coverage of the assassination attempt on former President Trump in a network special with David Muir tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Just looking around a little bit, guys. Looks like JLR is possibly, is this the parents' home?
The shooting occurred. The streets surrounding Crooks' home were here. Okay, so going back, it's saying in Stanley Pryslack on a porch of their nearby brick ranch-style home, trying to process the events of the last day, and the spotlight now on their typically quiet neighborhood, residential neighborhood. Happens on the street. This is neighbors. Neighbor gave an interview. Nothing happens on the street. Everybody kind of minds their own business, Stanley said. He's 72 years old. 72. Their neighbor's 72 years old. Everything is kind of a shock, surprise, and some dismay. There's never been a gun issue. There's never been the police being called, says Mary. So no police, no issues going on with this house. Now we're going to do Pennsylvania right to know law, Freedom of Information Act request and find out if the police, in fact, ever went to this home on any type of disturbances or anything. We will be doing that. And stay tuned for that because we'll be posting the records if there is any. But I have a feeling based off this assessment, maybe police never even went to the home. You kind of have to wonder what he did in life. What led to this extreme? And that's interesting. What led to the extreme for this guy to do this? Black, which cost him his life, right? Thomas Crooks graduated in 2022 from Bethel Park High School, according to a statement from Bethel Park School District. School district will completely and fully cooperate with active law enforcement investigation surrounding this case, and as such, we are limited to what we can publicly disclose, the statement read. The school district did not immediately respond to inquiry from Reuters. Crooks received a $500 Star Award from the National Math and Science Initiative, according to the Pittsburgh Tribune Review newspaper. A 2022 graduation ceremony video cited by the New York Times shows Crooks receiving his high school diploma to some applause. Video from the ceremony posted online shows Crooks with glasses in a black graduation gown and posing with a school official. Reuters could not immediately verify the authenticity of the vehicle. Let's see what I got here. Okay, so Brian Etton, News Nation, is reporting making materials were found in the vehicle and at the home of the suspect of the Trump rally shooting, according to law enforcement. Okay, so this is Brian Etton, News Nation. He's reporting that bomb-making materials were found at the home. So that is interesting. What is going on here, folks? Was this something bigger? Was this something bigger in his car and at his home? Father should be very, very worried here that his father or mother could possibly be charged here with something. Okay, bomb-making materials found at the home. Yeah, Magnolia, keep me informed if anything. Thomas Crooks. Let me see. Bomb. Yeah, this is scary, folks. This is scary. Very scary that they would find this type of stuff. The AP is reporting the bomb-making materials found in his car and home. Bomb was found in the residence. Wow. Law enforcement says that on Saturday, Crooks carried no identification to the site of the shooting and had to be identified through other measures. We're looking at photographs right now. We're trying to run his DNA and get biometric confirmation. Kevin Rojek, FBI special agent in charge, said during a press briefing. So we got FBI agent Kevin Rojek, R-O-J-E-K. That is the FBI agent, special agent in charge of this case on the FBI side. But again, there's, we heard from Bivens. Bivens, the state police spokesperson. Bivens, right? Bivens was speaking. He was the lead spokesman for the Cavalcante prison escape search in Pennsylvania. He was speaking. So, we got Secret Service, FBI, I would say ATF, because now bomb-making material, we probably got ATF. Who knows? County sheriffs, local police. We have a lot of agents here with this particular case, for sure, folks. For sure. Come on in. JLR investigates. We are covering this terrible, terrible tragedy that occurred. So Reuters could not immediately identify social media accounts or other postings by Crooks. The parent company of Facebook and Instagram did not immediately respond to questions of whether the platforms had removed any accounts related to the subject. It usually happens a lot in cases of mass shootings. Before the suspect gets identified by, law enforcement, publicly identified, it seems like one law contacts these social media platforms and has the shooters, suspects' accounts removed or purged from their platform. So when their names finally come out and we're scouring around trying to get clues and an understanding of who these people are, we can't find them. Very well be the case in this situation, because he didn't have a Facebook. I didn't see a Facebook. I didn't see an Instagram. I didn't see any social media accounts belonging to this guy. The only thing I've seen was that graduation video and that ad that he made, for this BlackRock, I don't know what it's called, BlackRock INC TV.
Investigators from multiple law enforcement agencies are focusing on a home in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, just south of Pittsburgh. It is where the suspected 20-year-old shooter lived. Investigative reporter and anchor Megan Schiller of CBS Pittsburgh is here. Good morning.
Good morning. This is about as close as we can get here in Bethel Park this morning to that gunman's home. If I step out of the way, look at all the law enforcement that is gathered down the street at the stop sign. If you hang a right, the gunman's home is right there, a few houses up. They have all of the roads blocked surrounding the home of the 20-year-old shooter right now. Secret Service and the FBI zeroed in on the home last night and are conducting an investigation into his background, speaking with his family and other contacts. And we were here as law enforcement swarmed the neighborhood about an hour south of Butler, where the rally occurred yesterday. I talked with one resident in the area who said that she heard a knock on the door in the middle of the night. She was told that she needed to evacuate and she would not be able to return to her home until noon today. When they came and knocked on your door and told you to leave the house, what did you know at that time?
Nothing. It was a state of emergency. That was it. And then I started hearing rumors shortly after about there being a bomb, which was just confirmed when I went to the Bethel Park police station and asked them what the hell was going on. They said there's a bomb in the house, and that's why we can't get there. And they said the earliest that we can look at getting in our house is going to be noon.
So the Bethel Park police.
2 officers from Bethel Park Police confirmed that there was a bomb in the house.
And now whether or not there was actually a bomb inside the shooter's home, still not confirmed. But we were told by Bethel Park Police that they were investigating a potential bomb threat around the gunman's home. Now we want to show you video here of the shooter where he appears to be graduating, accepting his diploma on stage from Bethel Park High School in 2022. He was a registered Republican who previously made a small donation to a Democratic-aligned group, $15 donation at that. At this time, there are no links to any foreign terrorism. The shooter is not well known to law enforcement here in this area of Pittsburgh, and so far, no motive released by the FBI. John?
Megan Schiller, thank you so much for that. We want to turn now to Samantha Vinograd, a former Homeland Security official and a CBS News contributor. Sam, thank you for joining us. Okay, let's start with just the same question I asked AT. What are the list of questions on your notepad of what you would want answered based on the facts as you know them right now?
Well, Don, I think there are really 2 lines of effort underway. The first is the investigation into the perpetrator himself. In a press conference last night, law enforcement did not rule out the fact that this individual did not act alone. So I am keen to hear whether law enforcement believes that this threat has been totally neutralized and that there are not other co-conspirators. At the same time, there's also a need to have an independent investigation into the intelligence and operational failures that led to this moment. This individual was not known to law enforcement. Investigators are likely still looking into whether he made concerning statements to his family and others, and if that was or was not known to law enforcement and why, and what security protocols the U.S. Secret Service had in place, what led to their determination on the extent of the secure perimeter, and again, what their command control structure was on the ground at the rally to communicate information about tips and to send law enforcement to investigate them on the ground as soon as possible.
In terms of rallies or events like this, and we have 2 conventions this summer, but over the last few years, give us your sense of how Homeland Security officials, Secret Service officials have had to change the way they cover these kinds of events, how much further out the perimeter has to be, how much more seriously they have to take threats because they are more numerous, but also that they can lead to this. Just give us a sense of the pre-existing condition with respect to political violence before this event ever happened.
Before this event ever happened, we were at an unprecedented high when it comes to political violence in this country against candidates and officials from both sides of the aisle. One important note of context, though, John, which is the U.S. Secret Service does not pick the sites at which candidates rally or where conventions are held. All that they can do under the best of circumstances is protect that site to the best of their ability. So we don't know if the U.S. Secret Service, in this case, in a large open-air field, warned that this site was not fully protected. As it pertains to the Republican National Convention, based upon the threat environment, based upon the very public reality that the world now knows that long-range weapons were able to strike a man who was perhaps viewed as impenetrable because of his security detail, they will likely now extend the security perimeter out. But John, last point, I will say that resources to protect the president and former president were already at an unprecedented high based upon the threat environment that we just discussed.
Samantha Vinograd, thank you so much.
This is an NBC News special report.
Good morning. We're coming on the air with more on the assassination attempt against former President Trump. I'm Kate Snow at NBC News headquarters in New York.
And I'm Tom Yamas on the ground in Butler, Pennsylvania, where a gunman opened fire on former President Donald Trump at a campaign rally just behind me here with thousands in attendance. Last night, the stage of a jubilant rally, now a crime scene, a massive crime scene and an active crime scene. And the site of the first assassination attempt against an American president in more than 40 years. The horrifying image is former President Trump clutching his ear. You see it right there after shots rang out. Ducking for cover behind his podium, the Secret Service forming a human shield around him and rushing him off stage. Trump raising his fist in defiance, telling his supporters to fight as the blood streamed down his face.
The gunman taken down by the Secret Service, the shooting leaving one rally-goer dead, another two badly wounded, still hospitalized. President Biden, before the cameras last night, calling the shooting sick, as politicians on both sides of the aisle condemn the violence and support the former president. And this morning, what we're learning about the shooter, Tom.
And the latest on the investigation, Kate, right, which is now underway, plus the political fallout just hours before the start of the Republican National Convention, an election resting on a razor's edge and a nation now left reeling. Kate, I want to set the scene for you just behind me. As I mentioned, we were just outside the Trump rally here. This is where it happened last night. Former President Trump speaking underneath that American flag. Just to the right of me here, this barn you see with the door open, that's where law enforcement snipers were. That's where they engaged the alleged assassin. Ultimately, the assassin was killed. He was just, I'd say, a tenth of a mile from where we are. We're going to show you video of that. Up on that roof, we saw investigators this morning, about a half dozen of them. They were up there early in the morning, sort of, looking for evidence, collecting evidence. It seemed like they were moving pieces of machinery as well. And then they eventually came down. But they've been working on this crime scene around the clock, as you can imagine, trying to answer two questions, right? One, why this man wanted to kill former President Trump, what was inside of him, but also, they also want to know how he was able to get so close. And while the identity of that shooter is known this morning, there are still so many questions surrounding exactly how this happened. Overnight, former President Trump walking off his plane hours after surviving this assassination attempt.
They said, take a look at what happened.
Wow.
Shots ringing out as President Trump ducks down. Secret Service agents rush to his side, forming a protective shield. Other officers in tactical gear, armed with long guns, post up at the front of the stage.
Hold, when you're ready, on you. Ready, move!
Trump's security detail lifting him up from the ground as he raises his fist, his ear and face bloody, gesturing to the crowd. The Secret Service then moving him into an awaiting SUV. Another angle showing Secret Service agents reacting to the shots. The former president posting on his Truth Social account that he, quote, was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through
Ignore
the skin.
hubby.
This stunning photo from the New York Times capturing what appears to be a bullet on the right-hand side of the image.
Whoa, look at that, you guys.
If he had not moved his head at that nick of time, it could have been a lot worse.
Mr. Trump extending his...
So right now, just waiting for an update. And as soon as I see them come to the podium, I will let you guys know. I'll put it on right away.
Was instantly killed.
President Biden, who learned about the tragic events, condemned the shooting.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this.
This video shows the body of the alleged assassin on the roof of a building, his spot just roughly 150 yards from where Mr. Trump was speaking. One witness telling BBC News he saw the shooter.
We noticed the guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof.
Nice hair, buddy.
Beside us. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, oh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him up the stage? Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know,
5 shots rang out. Early this morning, the FBI identified the alleged gunman as Thomas Matthew Crooks, 20 years old, of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. But why he allegedly wanted to kill former President Trump, still unclear. The FBI now leading an investigation involving the Secret Service, ATF, and state and local law enforcement on the ground in Butler, Pennsylvania. The alleged gunman killing one spectator and gravely injuring 2 others.
This evening we had what we're calling an assassination attempt against our former president, Donald Trump.
And we have 2 new pieces of information, 2 new pieces of reporting I want to share with our viewers right now. The first being that those 2 victims that were gravely injured in the shooting, we've gotten an update from the medical facility in Pittsburgh where they're being treated. They're still in critical condition this morning, so their situation is still very, very serious. The Secret Service also coming out with a statement. They're saying there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there was an online report that the Trump campaign had asked for additional security, additional Secret Service protection, and they were denied. The Secret Service this morning is saying that is absolutely false. They've actually ramped up their protection of former President Trump, and our reporting from NBC News matches that from about a month ago. With that, I do want to bring in a special guest to join our coverage, Richard Goldbinger. He's the district attorney for Butler County. And Richard, thank you for joining us. There's a lot of questions out there. When you see everything that's happening behind you, everything that's happened over the last 12 hours, what goes through your head?
Honestly, it's shocking. It's shocking that this would have happened.
They would try to get out of there as quick as possible.
The attempt on the president was in 1980, I think, and for it to happen in your own community, you just don't believe it would happen here. So, whatever, everything that's going down right now is really surreal.
You walk around this neighborhood, there are Trump flags, Trump placards, people have the lawn signs for president. This is Trump County, Trump country, I should say. This is Western PA, right?
Right.
Right on the border of Ohio. Do you think because of that, Secret Service, maybe local law enforcement, didn't take this as seriously as they needed to?
No, I don't think so. I think they did everything they could. You just can't predict somebody that has, a desire to commit the act that was committed, and they did everything they could. I don't know what happened. I don't know how that gentleman got up on that building like that, but I don't know that. I mean, you can second guess, obviously, all day long, but I don't think that there was anything they could have probably done differently because they were prepared.
Even the FBI has said they're surprised about how close this gentleman got. I should say the alleged assassin. It was about 150 yards, 440 feet. It's just down the road from where we are. It is so close when you walk up to it. It is so close. How do you think that happened? I mean, the Secret Service was here. Yes, it was outside the perimeter, but we know that long guns can fire 200 yards.
Right. I think that's the $1 million question. And I don't really know the answer to that. I would have expected that they would have had that building secured. And I know we had people in that building. So how this occurred, the investigation will determine that.
The alleged shooter who was killed, Thomas Matthew Crooks, 20 years old. We know that he was from a community not far from here. What other light can you shed for us about the alleged shooter to our viewers?
So I don't know a whole lot about him. He's not from Butler County. So he would be from south of Pittsburgh. We didn't have any history with him. So
he wasn't somebody who had a criminal record, from what we understand.
Correct.
So he wasn't on your radar.
No, he was not.
Talk to me about gun laws, what people can expect that is normal behavior here. If somebody is walking armed, if somebody is walking with a rifle, is that normal here, or is it could people be hunting? Your laws, walk our viewers through it.
Well, this is a big hunting county. There's a lot of people hunt here. I'll bet a lot of people own firearms in this county too. It's a pro-gun county, let's say. To see somebody walking with a rifle, you would probably stop and say, "What's this individual up to?" So that would be unusual to see, but to see somebody with guns here in Butler County would not be surprising.
One of the rally goers, at least a couple of them, have said that they noticed him bear crawling on the roof. They started alerting police. This is this looks strange. What?
And I hate to use the word routine, but it is a fairly routine matter for all of our agents. There was a grandstand, a very large area, a lot of people there when this all unfolded. The former president had come out and begun to speak shortly after 6 o'clock this evening. And within about 10 to 15 minutes, a number of sounds were heard, and it became apparent that shots were being fired in that direction. Chaotic scene. Law enforcement, I believe, acted heroically, quickly identifying and neutralizing the threat, as well as responding to assist the various victims. PSP had a significant presence on the scene along with all of our federal partners at the time of the shooting. We have since enhanced that presence significantly, bringing in resources from all over the Commonwealth to ensure that we have a speedy, thorough investigation. We are working very closely with the FBI as we work through this. As you can imagine, because of the variety of crimes that have been committed, some are under federal jurisdiction, some are under state jurisdiction. And so, we're working through all of that, not an issue at all, seamlessly. But the FBI has maintained the lead on the attempted assassination. PSP will take the lead on the homicide and the shootings of the other individuals in the grandstand area. And so there are a lot of witnesses to be interviewed, a lot of things to be processed. There were some complicators that hopefully the next time we speak we can describe for you, but some complicators that slowed down some of the processing and the positive identification of the shooter. But know that at this time we have no reason to believe that there is any other existing threat out there. We are doing everything we can to make sure that this is thoroughly investigated, and that if there is any information developed that anyone else was involved, that between PSP and the FBI, that will very quickly be followed up on. So I think at this time we would open it up to questions from all of you. Again, I think it's too early to say that. We have one shooter tentatively identified, but we're not stopping there. We're following up on a lot of information. It will be some time until we can conclusively say or answer that question. Again, that will all be part of the investigation, but I can tell you that preliminarily it appears everything unfolded very quickly. So, again, we'll have more information on that, but it's just too early to start definitively saying this happened at this exact time. That's correct. We'll have that information for you. It was some distance outside of We're following up on those. I will tell you that I am aware of those, and I am aware that law enforcement had responded to a number of reports of suspicious activity. The specific response to this will be all part of the after action, but yes, law enforcement was responding to check on several suspicious occurrences. That'll all be part of the investigation.
So it looks like there was bomb making materials in his parents' home. What the hell, are they froze? That's a nice look, buddy.
I don't have their exact seating by individual. Again, that'll all be part of the investigation, but their shots were scattered somewhat, and so they weren't.
I'm going to move to this one, guys. Speak up, buddy. Jesus. Sorry, guys, I can't get the volume cranked.
First and foremost, the assassination attempt on the president last night is absolutely unacceptable. Lori and I are grateful that the former president is safe and, according to him and his team, is fine. It's also important to note that last night, 3 of our fellow Pennsylvanians were shot, 1 fatally and 2 in critical condition. I've just spent time speaking to the families, and I want to offer my prayers and the prayers of all 13 million Pennsylvanians for the 2 individuals who are being treated at this time. We lost a fellow Pennsylvanian last night, Corey Comparator. I just spoke to Corey's wife and Corey's 2 daughters.
Oh.
Corey was a girl dad. Corey was a firefighter. Corey went to church every Sunday. Corey loved his community. Most especially, Corey loved his family. Corey was an avid supporter of the former president. He was so excited to be there last night with him in the community. I asked Corey's wife if it would be okay for me to share that we spoke. She said yes. She also asked that I share with all of you that Corey died a hero. That Corey dove on his family to protect them last night at this rally. Corey was the very best of us. May his memory be a blessing.
Rest in peace.
Last night was shocking for this community and for this Commonwealth, and I know for this country. Political disagreements can never, ever be addressed through violence. Disagreements are okay, but we need to use a peaceful political process to settle those differences. This is a moment where all leaders have a responsibility to speak and act with moral clarity, where all leaders need to take down the temperature and rise above the hateful rhetoric that exists and search for a better, brighter future for this nation. It's the work that I try to do every day here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that's the work that falls to each and every American right now. And so I ask that you join me in prayer for the 2 Pennsylvanians who are in critical condition. We continue to wish for a full and speedy recovery and pray for the former president. And the Comparator family remains in our thoughts and prayers. They have some very challenging times ahead of them. They will have an empty seat at the dinner table for the rest of their lives. But we need to make sure that Corey's memory is forever a blessing. And here in Pennsylvania, we will see to it that that is the case. And with that, I'll be happy to try and take a few questions.
Governor, a lot of folks are starting to ask the tough question about whether that building that the shooter accessed should have been secured. Should it have been secured? And do the Pennsylvania State Police have any responsibility to have it secured?
I'm not going to get into any questions answer any questions regarding the ongoing investigation. I trust that the FBI and the Pennsylvania State Police will keep you posted throughout the day and in the days ahead as to their investigation.
Governor, there were some concerning items that the police had found in the suspect's vehicle. Do you have any update on those? And are you confident at this point the threat is over, that he acted alone and that the public is in fact safe?
The investigation is ongoing and law enforcement will update you on the status of their investigation throughout the day.
Can you share any more about your communications with former President Donald Trump or his team?
I have not spoken directly to the former president. I have wished him well. Multiple times last evening through statements Lori and I have. The people of Pennsylvania, I know, we're praying for him. And again, according to his team, and himself, it seems as though he will be fine, obviously, relatively speaking. And we're glad to see that violence is never acceptable. I should also let you know that I did speak to President Biden. He called me last night to make sure that here in the Commonwealth we had all the resources we needed. I assured him that we did. At the time, he had yet to speak to President Trump. I think they connected later in the evening, and he wanted me to know that he was trying to reach out to the former president. I think that that was the honorable and right thing to do, and I'm glad that President Biden did that. We have no unmet needs at this time, and we're working in concert with our federal partners, and I let the president know that.
Governor, have you talked to the families of those two who were critically injured, and do you have an update on them?
I spoke to the family of one of them, and the other left a detailed message, and I'm not going to get into their status. That'll be shared by the Pennsylvania State Police and or the family later today.
Governor, were you asking for Black to speak on staff prophecy, and also knowing that this is going to be a really intense and even so battleground state for president? What would your message?
Can I say, I just missed the last part of what you said.
The first was about the Black, the second, knowing that this is going to be important in the South, in the state of Pennsylvania, and that we're divided here. What is your message?
I have directed that flags be flown at half-staff in Corey's memory, and our chief of staff is working through that process now. My message to all Pennsylvanians, my message to all Americans is to be firm in your beliefs, to believe what you believe, to advocate for what you believe, and to be engaged in the political and civic process, but to always do so peacefully. To remember that while we may be Democrats and Republicans, above all else, we are Americans. And if you look at the story of this great nation over the last 248 years, a nation that was born right here in Pennsylvania, it's been ordinary Americans at every single step of the way, rising up, demanding more, seeking justice, advocating for change, and doing so peacefully. And those who have advocated for such change peacefully, they have been the ones to bring that about. We have to remember that even in these times where there are real divisions, that we have to address those divisions through engagement in the political and civic process in a peaceful manner. That is incumbent upon all political leaders of all parties, and it is incumbent upon the public. I will tell you that notwithstanding the tragedy that we saw last night here in Butler, the awful tragedy, that every day when I'm around Pennsylvania, I see the very best in Pennsylvanians. People who do have fervent beliefs, people who do have passionate beliefs, but who engage in a peaceful manner, and who love their neighbors, and who engage with people in their communities, even those that they might have differences with. We need to learn from our history in this Commonwealth and in this country, and we need to bring our better angels forward and carry that forward into this political season. I'll take one more. Yes. His wife shared with me that he drove on his family to protect them. As for any other information, that'll be shared by law enforcement. Thank you all very much.
Wow. You guys, wow. So what we'll do, I think, is continue on with the other update.
The one particular location.
You're saying just one fatality?
Yes,
The shooter of one fatality?
the shooter plus one fatality.
Okay.
So there was one victim of the shooter who was killed, and then the shooter was killed. Yes, ma'am.
What if they said they saw a semi-automatic rifle inside the shooter? Can you share any details of that?
I've heard those reports as well, and again, we do have a good idea of what the weapon was, but again, that's all part of the ongoing investigation. And I'm not trying to be cagey about that. When the SAC talked about the need to be very methodical and to be cautious with that scene, we are doing just that. We don't want anybody else getting hurt, And candidly, there are some concerns that we'll be able to talk more about later on about just what those concerns are and continue to be. That's all part of the investigation.
After the event, there were a lot of really angry people. Are you monitoring? Has there been any threats in response to this? Are you worried? Have there been any specific threats?
That's certainly a concern, and we're monitoring that whole situation. I mentioned that we're bringing a lot of assets to bear, and so like the FBI utilizing their analysts, we also have the Pennsylvania Criminal Intelligence Center. We will utilize the resources of our intelligence division and the Criminal Intelligence Center to be able to monitor for concerns about any threats, regardless of the side of the issue or the political spectrum. We want to make sure that we try and avoid any further violence.
But no, nothing specific.
No, sir.
Can you say anything about the other folks who were injured or killed? Were they adults, men, male, female, anything at all?
They were adults, and they're male.
All three.
Yes.
How difficult today is this department now, or all departments to come off? Family members, go into work on down, or listening to a rally, trying, celebrating a different election. What are the conversations like, and how do you kind of get through that?
We have trained investigators, and we're partnered hand in hand with the FBI again because we've got some federal violations, some state violations, and so our investigators are going out methodically. We have a large team of investigators. They're going out, dividing up these interviews and trying to conduct them as quickly as possible. And then there'll be follow-ups. With the FBI asking for people to call in tips, I have no doubt that we will receive a lot of additional information that will also require follow-up. But again, we're working very well together, and it's only a short matter of time until we get through all of those interviews.
How close and cold was it for President Trump?
There were no police hit with bullets.
From your experience, how close and cold was it for?
I'm not going to speculate or comment on that.
Have any of you?
So I'm going to take a look here, guys. Okay, the 20-year-old from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania was a registered Republican who donated to a progressive PAC. I don't know. So the early portrait has emerged that the 20-year-old Pennsylvania man who authorities say tried to assassinate former Republican President Donald Trump at the campaign rally in the state Saturday before Secret Service agents pew-pewed him.
A little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Whoa. Wow. 150 meters. Whoa.
Thanks for coming, folks. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this.
To the president, did any of you have any kind of reaction?
No.
Which law enforcement agencies were tasked with securing this particular lab outside of the United States?
Well, Secret Service always has the lead on securing something like this, but then they work very closely. And I hate to use the word routine, but it is a fairly routine matter for all of our agencies to work jointly with the Secret Service. And it really depends on the venue, on what information is out there, what number of resources are devoted to it, and we work with them to provide whatever is requested by the Secret Service, but they're the lead in that security.
Was there anything about this venue that made it particularly difficult to secure?
You know, I would defer to the Secret Service to answer that. They would have done the initial assessment.
Was the rooftop part of what was being secured? Was the rooftop given its proximity to the event part of that process?
It's my understanding that was outside of the perimeter. We're not going to comment on anything about the shooter.
So yeah, this guy was literally outside of the perimeter. So I don't know. Are they going to start extending that perimeter? Because good God, Martha.
Thomas Crooks.
Madison Rapali.
There he is there. No, what else are they going to give us? Nothing. Okay, so it says that Thomas, a gunman who attempted to assassinate former President Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, has been pictured for the first time. So this is him here. Maybe what I'm going to do . So this is just outside of his parents' place. Okay, so Crooks 20 was on the roof of a manufacturing plant over 130 yards away from the Trump rally at Butler Farm Showgrounds. Okay, so it was like a rodeo grounds or showgrounds. So we know that it grazed his ear, and sadly, one person was deleted by this little piece of shit. Immediately after he began shooting, Secret Service snipers took the 20-year-old out. He was found with an AR-style semi-automatic rifle and was wearing a shirt for the popular gun YouTube channel Demolition Ranch that has over 11 million subscribers. Wow. A lot of subs. I have to say, I was impressed how Donald Trump handled that. Just unfrickin' real.
Trump's team, extra security, any of the agencies that are out there?
Not that I'm aware of.
If Trump had been the nominee already, would he have had additional security for this event?
There again, Secret Service has the lead, and I'm not going to comment or speculate on what may or may not be provided at any given point, depending on their status as a candidate. What I will tell you is that in my experience, Secret Service does an excellent job of maintaining security on protectees. They're very cautious. They don't hesitate to ask for resources, and candidly, we don't hesitate to supply those resources.
Could you elaborate and be more specific about what you really like to see from the public, videos, photos, personal accounts?
I think the videos and photos would be very helpful. And I think that once the shooter is identified, anyone that has specific information on that shooter, that would be very helpful as well to help us assess motive. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we are absolutely not taking for granted that this was a lone wolf attack. And so we would be looking for any additional information that might point us toward anybody else that may have had a hand in this.
Sir, at this point, what is the main focus of the investigation? What's the most important thing for you right now, a few hours?
Well, there's not any one single focus. I mean, certainly the immediate focus was life safety, getting the former president out of there and to care, getting care to the other victims and trying to secure the scene as quickly as possible. It shifted then from a life safety priority to then an investigative priority. And so I guess if I had to point to where we are right now, the single greatest priority would be to identifying a motive and whether there was anyone else involved.
We're just beginning the political season. Are you guys concerned with all of these rallies that happen and how they're set up? Is this gonna change maybe the venues?
Again, I would refer you to the Secret Service in terms of what they work out with the campaigns. We will continue to supply resources, as I'm sure the FBI will, and the local partners as well. I suppose, but there's a balance. I would think that any of the campaigns on either side try to weigh. I mean, the point of them announcing it, I suspect, is because they want the crowd. And so it's not up to us in law enforcement to tell them when they should announce or how they should announce or how they should conduct it. We offer our best advice. Again, working hand in hand with the Secret Service, offer our best advice of how best to secure and protect that venue.
Sir, considering how many people were there, and you have packed in there, and you have somebody in an elevated position with potentially a high-powered rifle, how lucky is it that we're only talking about a couple of victims? As sad and tragic as that is.
Well, we're certainly grateful that we don't have even more victims. And again, in terms of how this could have occurred, that will be part of this after-action report and an investigation that occurs so that we can hopefully ensure that something like this doesn't happen again.
Has an autopsy been conducted yet, or is it scheduled?
It has not been conducted yet.
And then we set up a specific tip line for audio and video, and that's fbi.gov/Butler.
I froze up.
Anything that anyone has that is related to this incident that they think may be of assistance investigatively, we'll take anything and we'll analyze it and we'll make the determination if it's of investigative value. Go ahead. Is everyone ready? All right. So my name is Kevin Rojek. That's R-O-J-E-K. I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI Pittsburgh field office. The first thing I want to say is that the FBI stands with the people of Butler County in Western Pennsylvania, and our hearts go out to the victims of this heinous act which occurred today. This is our community, and I wanted to let the public know that the FBI has deployed a number of our resources, including investigative agents, our evidence response team, bomb technicians, and we have additional resources coming from other field offices, as well as from FBI headquarters, including our evidence response from Quantico, Virginia. We have intelligence analysts as well, working from our field office in Pittsburgh, working feverishly to attempt to identify the individual who did this and any motives behind why this was done.
Okay, so we've got that information. Let's take a look here. Alrighty, guys. Wow.
There was a device appearing capable of triggering or initiating those devices in the vehicle remotely. So a lot of concern about just beyond the weapon, that AR style rifle that the gunman had on him, a separate attack with the vehicle and the gunman itself. We're also learning from law enforcement a little bit more about that weapon. Two law enforcement sources tell CBS News that the gun was purchased legally by the father of the suspect. Now, we don't know the timeline on that just yet, but like I said, we know it's an AR-style rifle, a semi-automatic weapon, a very high-powered weapon. We know that this individual shot at the former president from roughly 400 feet away.
Did it sound like they believe he did not act alone at this point? I mean, they're keeping that door open, whether he had accomplices.
You heard the governor there saying this is a very active, ongoing investigation at this point. No indication that there's another individual involved, but still investigating.
Okay, Nicole, thank you. Let's go to Charlie DeMar. He is reporting from Pennsylvania for us in Bethel Park outside the gunman's home. Charlie, what are you learning this afternoon?
And Maurice, this is about as close as we can get to the home, as law enforcement has been zeroing in on that 20-year-old's home since the middle of the night, shortly after that shooting, not far from where we are. What we can tell you is within about the last hour or so, we've seen a county bomb squad vehicle go to the home, and that tracks with Nicole's reporting of those potential explosive devices and incendiary devices that were found in his car. What we've been able to gather so far about this 20-year-old shooter is that he graduated from a local high school here in 2022. He was a registered Republican who previously made a small donation to a Democratic-aligned group, and at this time there are no links to any foreign terrorism groups, and the shooter was not on the radar of law enforcement at this time. I also had the opportunity to speak to a former classmate of the shooter. He says that they weren't close friends, but he did know that that shooter was bullied throughout high school, called him an outcast, but said he never suspected that he was capable of carrying something like this out, Maurice.
And Charlie, you look at his photo, 20 years old, a kid, quite frankly, to wreak this much havoc on our nation as we try to let this sink in. We heard from some neighbors last night. They were evacuated. They were told by a couple of officers, they told us, that there were concerns about there being a bomb inside his house, and they were evacuated. They said they may come home at some point this afternoon. What are you hearing on that front?
And clearly this investigation far from over, but we have not seen any neighbors coming and going. Typically when there is a large law enforcement investigation like this, you'll see neighbors peek their heads out, and inside that perimeter, which is right behind us, we haven't seen any of that. We've not seen cars coming and going, which would lead you to suggest or to believe that people are not in their homes yet. Again, we just saw that bomb squad vehicle coming within the last couple of hours or so. So police still doing their work. They definitely want to make sure that this is a clear scene before letting neighbors back into their homes.
Okay, thank you very much. CBS's Charlie DeMar there at the gunman's hometown, his neighborhood of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. The Republican National Convention does start tomorrow in Milwaukee. That's where we find our Major Garrett. Major, have you seen any kind of changes to the security perimeter, to the tone, the mood there in Milwaukee?
Yes, Maurice, briefly. I can say there are three things that are most on the minds of convention organizers: the schedule, the security, and the speeches. Let's start with security. There is already a very large hardened perimeter around the Fiserv Arena. That's typical for Democratic or Republican national conventions, has been for decades. There is some sense here in Milwaukee that hardened perimeter several blocks around the arena will be enlarged. And then the soft perimeter that is around it may also be enlarged, and tighter security checks for credentials and things like that. All of that is under ongoing review. Then there's the schedule. Will the schedule hold? All the organizers here said yes, the 4 days of the convention will go on as planned. There may be alterations in terms of a roll call or announcing a running mate for former President Trump. That's still up in the air. And the speeches, they're being redrafted now to reflect the events in Bethel, Pennsylvania, an attempted assassination attempt on former President Trump's life. Republicans will use this moment to talk about not only the threats to the former president, but they believe the larger threat to the future of our country. Those speeches will reflect this moment. How harshly or archly, we don't know yet. Amid all the calls for taking the temperature down, that's an ongoing calculus for Republicans preparing to start their convention here in Milwaukee tomorrow.
Okay, Major Garrett Forrest in Milwaukee, thank you so much. Let's bring in CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang at the White House. Weijia, the president's scheduled to speak in about an hour. He is meeting with his law enforcement and homeland security officials right now. What are you hearing?
That's right, Maurice. The president will make an address to the nation at 1:30 p.m. It is scheduled for, and that is following a briefing inside the Situation Room with his Homeland Security team. That includes also the Attorney General of the United States, the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of Homeland Security, as well as the directors of the FBI and the Secret Service. And we don't know, Maurice, yet the scope of how this will impact his official schedule. But on the campaign side, we know that they have suspended all political activity. They have paused any outbound communications and pulled television ads because President Biden and his team right now say they are focused on lowering the temperature, and he is serving in the role as commander-in-chief, as consoler-in-chief. We also know, Maurice, that he spoke by phone with the former president yesterday, and a White House official tells CBS News that that call was, quote, good, short, and respectful. So
So it sounds like it was his father's weapon, and it sounds like it was obtained legally. I have no idea about what was going on in this 20-year-old's head. He's supposed to be a Democrat, which would be typically, wouldn't that be a Trump person? Wouldn't that be someone who is should be proud to stand by Trump, not bring a weapon and try and eliminate him?
Of details, but we know it was a cordial call. And again, it was something that the president mentioned when he spoke to the nation last night, saying,
I have so many questions, you guys. I'm going to put this up really quick as well. We'll come back to this. We're waiting for an update. It sounds like in about 20 minutes, we will be hearing from Biden.
First thing I heard was a couple of cracks. Then I saw a hydraulic line. One of the speakers looked like it got hit. Then I heard, like Chris said, a couple of bullets rattling around. And we hit the deck. And once the authorities converged, we assisted with the two patients that may have gotten shot up in the grandstand, and we cleared a path for getting them out of the way. And just a sad day for America. After I heard the shots got fired, then the hydraulic line was spraying all around. You could see the hydraulic fluid coming out of it, and then the speaker tower started to fall down. And then we heard another shot that you could hear. You knew something was. It was bullets. I mean, it wasn't firecrackers. I mean, they weren't super loud shots, but you could tell they were
You could hear it landed, the ammunition landed on metal.
Yeah, it was. And then we just kind of took cover behind there was a farm tractor there. We just told everybody to get down. We tried to get them to move back because at that time we didn't know if we're still an active shooter. Turned around and concerned for President Trump. And we saw him stand up, and it looks like he was really, the Secret Service really had been huddled around him. And he got up and he gave him it was okay. And then after that, he was just trying to get out and save him.
USA! USA!
I don't know. We heard gunshots. There were. I don't know. Trump is standing. Trump is standing. Guys, just undo the gate. Just lift this left side. Come on. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Guys, take the road. Take the road.
Terrifying. Just absolutely.
Nick, Steven, Marvin. Guys, keep on. Did he get hit? No. I think there's something. He was standing at the end. Democrats can't shoot. Bro, I called it. They were gonna. Is there more shit? I don't know. Did he really? Wow. Yeah. You see the flip go down or no? Yeah.
Overnight, the shooter was identified as being our chief law and justice correspondent, Thomas, with the latest.
I don't know. I saw him standing after when the cheering was going on. Well, he was up. He was standing. That was like 5 shots, bro.
What the fuck was happening? Like.
Where's that song coming? Goodness gracious, great balls of fire.
And you know, that's a real good.
Jesus, you guys. Absolutely terrifying.
Stay over here.
He's on top of the roof. Don't go over there. He's on the roof, buddy.
He's gone.
He's dead. I just seen his hair go up and shot him in the head. Oh, fuck.
Well, if they hit anybody over there.
Did he pull up a shot?
He number of shots.
I thought that was ours.
No, that was him. The first 2 shots were him.
So how did he get up there?
He's on the roof right there. He's right there on the roof.
How'd he get up there? Shimmy up a pole? You can tell he just came out with his fist. The crowd goes wild.
Hospital here. Police got everything blocked off.
Bro, he's in it. They got him. They got him.
Months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look what happened.
Wow.
Get down, baby.
did too. I saw him get on the gun. Yep.
They hit the hydraulic.
His crimes is what they've done over 4 years and hiding what the obvious facts are.
Jesus. About 9 minutes, we'll get another update from Biden. He was registered as a Republican voter according to state's records. Graduated from high school in Pennsylvania in 2022, and he had no military affiliation. Firearm recovered at the scene was legally purchased by the suspect's father. An urgent trace conducted by the ATF found, according to multiple law enforcement sources, authorities found items of concern inside the shooter's vehicle parked outside the rally. Law enforcement sources told ABC that bomb technicians and other experts were called to investigate, but it was unclear if the items were suspicious or potentially harmful. He really was not up that high. So far, investigators have not uncovered any ties to extremist organizations or individuals, though they continue to scour information from the subject's phone and other digital devices. Shots rang out few moments after Trump stepped out onto an outdoor stage in Butler, Pennsylvania at about 6 p.m. on Saturday. State Police Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens said the suspect was firing from a roof of a building outside of the security perimeter, taking aim from hundreds of feet away from the stage. One of the bullets struck Trump in the ear, the right ear, but he was protected and was safe. A Secret Service counter sniper opened fire and deleted the suspect. The scene was chaotic and everything unfolded very quickly. Law enforcement officials took several hours to publicly identify Crooks as their suspect, saying at a press conference late Saturday they believed they knew who carried this out, but were refraining to name the individual. I'm going to get in trouble if I play that music, guys. I hope they don't ding me. So 6 minutes until we get that update from Biden. The FBI did not currently have any identified motive. Graduated in 2022 from Bethel Park High, and we've seen him go up on stage. The school district wishes to express its sincere wishes for a speedy and full recovery of Mr. Trump. Condolences to the family of at least the one attendee who was deleted. Jesus. So in this one, it's saying the gunman and at least one audience member is deceased and 2 others are critically injured. And this was about 10 minutes ago. Secret Service is now facing serious questions and calls for congressional investigation into the handling of security around that rally. You know, why was that not covered? I'm thinking if the weapon could go that far.
Trump rally and somebody just started shooting. What's just happened? Oh my God. Go.
We heard bullets.
I'm just going to get rid of this, guys. Look at that
Now
picture.
you say you were yelling as was.
Wow.
Where Donald Trump was. So I don't think they could have heard us at the time because how far the distance was until they started seeing the chaos of people start running and screaming. Because it, like I said, he was able to get probably 4 shots off before took him out.
Ryan, what was your reaction in that moment? Did you feel like maybe you were mistaken, or maybe it was, we have a tendency sometimes to downplay situations when we are in them, or did you realize right away what was about to happen?
I realized right away what was happening. I was scared for my life. I threw my owner, he's an older man, 70 years old. I threw him to the ground. And then I tried to get down to the ground with him because the shots were going off and I could see the smoke coming out his gun. It was intense. It was really surreal.
What was it like right after then?
Chaos. You got multiple agencies trying to move people, figure out what's actually going on. Of course, they rushed the building, went up there and make sure he was dead. It was nuts. I don't know how other way to explain it. It was just massive chaos.
And are you having conversations about this now, Ryan? When you got home last night and in talking to other people from the community, what are they saying? How are they reacting to this?
They're very frightened. It's a scary thing. Butler's a very small town. And for something this big to happen in such a small area, it's quite an eye opener.
Ryan, how do you feel now? I mean, you witnessed something incredibly dramatic yesterday. Do you feel like it's sunk in?
Oh, yeah. It's sunk in hard. It definitely makes me feel like we are a little divided here in our country, which we should not be.
Well, Ryan, I'm so sorry that you had to witness what you did yesterday. I'm glad that you and your colleagues are safe. And thank you for
Although it was
sharing
a
your
quick
story with
moment,
us.
It really did extend
You're welcome.
over time. As that wrapped up, we began, of course, going live on air. That was when, pretty shortly after, a few moments after, it was declared an official crime scene, and then they exited all attendees of the rally, anyone that was in the press, and we were quickly escorted. That was a really unique and special moment as everyone was exiting the rally together with a lot of uncertainty of what was happening. You heard a lot of shouts from people in the crowd saying that to pray for the former president. You also heard a lot of people that were angry and upset and confused. Obviously, an intense moment where a lot wasn't known. We're continuing to find out more, but we're thankful for safety. We're thankful. We're obviously very, very saddened by the loss of people, and continuing to learn more as we go.
And we are thankful for you, Jake Trailer. Terrible experience. Probably this is your first campaign, the first big campaign for us. So, a terrible way to start off. Gabe Gutierrez, last night the president condemning the attack. The White House says that President Biden has spoken with Donald Trump. We don't know much more about that except for what the White House said, that it was brief and respectful. What is the White House saying today? We know we're going to hear from the president in about 15 minutes if their schedule holds.
Hi there, Andrew. Good afternoon. Well, yes, as you said, the president speaking last night and condemning this act of violence, calling it sick. Now, we do expect to hear from President Biden in the next 15 minutes or so, but given the fast-moving developments in the story, that timing could slide a bit. But as you mentioned earlier, the president speaking with his national security team in the Situation Room this morning, along with the vice president, the FBI director, national security advisor, and Homeland Security secretary, as well as the attorney general. Now, Andrea, this all comes amid the context of this campaign, which it seems like an eternity ago, but just
So Biden should be. We're just waiting for them to get their poop in a group. And Biden's going to talk about the attempt on Donald Trump last night. I mean, he was literally, if he hadn't turned his head,
taking down TV ads as well that were attacking former President Trump. But again, we are awaiting the president's new remarks scheduled for about 15 minutes from now, Andrea.
And Gabe, we don't know whether the president is changing his schedule. He was supposed to go to the LBJ library, and as you know, was doing an interview with Lester Holt. But he was first giving a speech on the anniversary of the Civil Rights Law.
Certainly, that all still remains up in the air, Andrew. As you mentioned, he is supposed to head to Texas tomorrow and then to Nevada later on this week to speak at two conferences there. He also had another interview scheduled for later in the week with BET News. All that remains up in the air as officials here at the White House are dealing with this crisis in real time, trying to find out the president's schedule as the week progresses. But again, the campaign saying today that the vice president's trip to Florida, she was actually supposed to head to Palm Beach County, that has been postponed, Andrew.
And Nevada, a key swing state that was not looking very well for the Democrats this year. Tom Winter, Jake Trailer, and Gabe Gutierrez, thanks to all of you. And I want to bring in Jim Kavanaugh, the retired ATF special agent in charge and NBC News terrorism analyst, and Cedric Alexander, former public safety director for DeKalb County, Georgia, and an NBC News senior law enforcement analyst. Jim Kavanaugh, I've been wanting to talk to you about the weapon used, the rifle. And there's an extraordinary picture from Doug Mills, the iconic White House photographer who has worked for decades and decades, is always with the President of the United States whom he's covering, with a former president. And you can see in that circle, Jim, the bullet. How long would it take after the bullet was fired from that weapon before people would hear it, before Mr. Trump would be aware of it? We can see how it just missed doing considerably more damage.
Right. Well, having been shot out without result before, I can tell you that you hear the bullet whiz by your ear. It sounds like a bee. And what you have to remember, Andrea, is it's like a flying drill bit. It's spinning, and it's traveling at 3,000 feet per second or 3,200. behind the bullet. So the bullet travels so fast, it goes by your head, and then you hear the shot. So you don't hear the shot right away because the speed of sound. So yeah, it's an unbelievable picture. And I think he probably was hit the second shot when you watch the video, and that was likely the first shot because he's not struck there. And he's either struck with the first or second shot. I think that's probably the first shot. He grabs his ear on the second shot. Now, just quickly, the shooter have a scope on that rifle, but if he had a scope on that rifle, Mr. Trump may be dead. If he was just using the regular sights the rifle came with, he almost killed the president. He just by about 2 inches. So it's a miracle he was not killed. And it's a tremendous lapse not to have uniformed officers or Secret Service on a rooftop that's only 148 yards from the dais. I mean, it's shocking to me that wasn't covered. That's a failure. They had great success, though. They killed the shooter in one shot, which also saved the former president's life, because if he were to continue shooting with a 30-round mag, he could have shot through the bodies of the Secret Service huddle and still killed the former president and wounded them or shot others. And so they did a lot of things right by the counter sniper team taking him out and the huddle moving him quickly, but it's a failure not to have people on that roof.
And how do you carry a rifle to a rally on a rooftop with people all around you, including law enforcement? You can't hide a rifle.
Right. Well, you can sometimes put it in under a cover, a blanket, a shirt. Lee Harvey Oswald put it in wrapped his rifle up to walk in the school book depository before he killed John Kennedy, and he told his neighbor who drove him there that it was window blinds. So you can cover it up, or you can put it down by your leg, and that business might not have been open where the red roof is, where the gunman was, and he could have parked in that parking lot. I didn't hear from the witnesses how he ingressed that. I mean, he might have climbed on the bed of a truck, climbed up a truck or on top of an air conditioning unit to get up on top of there. He could have even bought a ladder in a pickup truck or something, but we haven't heard those details. But the only way to stop that is you get there first, you have a lot of people, and you command the high ground. This is basic. And the Secret Service has done it for years successfully, so I am really surprised that they did not have that high ground covered. A uniformed trooper or two up there, maybe on a couple of those other high spots, is all it would take to prevent this. And then the guy might have been captured coming with the rifle. We can talk about resources, Andrea, but the Pennsylvania State Police has 3,000 troopers. I mean, the township police are there, the sheriff, the Secret Service. I mean, we could have mustered up a few officers to get up there. It's not that there wasn't enough people. The people can be got. It just should have been covered. It can't be said that it's outside the perimeter. That's not a good answer, because a rifle can reach easily from that location.
And Cedric, let's talk about the local law enforcement, because it's conceivable that the Secret Service deferred to local law enforcement or state police to cover that location.
Well, we don't exactly know that. Generally, what happens when you have a president, a former president, coming into your community, there's a coordination right from the onset with the Secret Service and local and state law enforcement. How much conversation and how they integrated their resources, we may know superficially. But I think in detail as to what occurred and where the lapse may have been in security is going to be determined over the period of time. And I certainly do agree with Jim Kavanaugh that you have a...
So authorities have identified the rally attendee who was sadly taken away from his family as Corey Compertor, 50, of Starver, Pennsylvania, who Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro told reporters was deleted as he dove on top of his family to protect them from the hail of bullets. Corey was an avid supporter of the former president and was also excited to be the last night with him in the community. Shapiro added, political disagreements can never, ever be addressed through violence. Trump, 78 years old, holy crap, had just begun his campaign speech in Butler, Pennsylvania, about 30 miles or 50 kilometers north of Pittsburgh, when the shots rang out. Fight, 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 Trump mouthed to his supporters, pumping his fists. Wasn't that an amazing thing? They have still not identified the motive for the attack. Both Republicans and Democrats are looking into the evidence of Crooks' political affiliation as they seek to cast the rival party as representing extremism. I don't know.
Proof. And all we can do is work collaboratively together, along with the community, along with indigenous law enforcement and the Secret Service, and to try to reduce the likelihood of this kind of event ever occurring again, or to negate it if possible. But it can be very complex, and providing that kind of security and that kind of large event also is very convoluted, and you could have lapses in there. But I think there's going to be opportunities there for law enforcement to learn what we can do better also going forward. It's a sad and tragic, horrible event that should have never happened, and the shooter should have been confronted earlier. But here again, we don't know all the circumstances.
Cedric Alexander, thank you so much. And Jim Kavanaugh, as always, thanks to you. And we are awaiting remarks from President Biden in any moment, expected to speak from the Roosevelt Room at the White House. We'll be right back.
The NBC News mobile app. Get connected to your favorite news shows. For the top stories, breaking news, and live video, download the NBC News mobile app now.
More Americans turn to NBC News than any other news organization.
We're talking possibly 1 trillion galaxies. Yes. That is a number that is just so hard to compute.
Whether it's the moon, whether it's Mars, it feels like we're on the cusp of something big.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so let's see here. If you want, you can send me that information, Barbara. Name, that type of thing when this happened, and I can do some looking into it for you. Okay, so Biden is to speak in about 3 minutes. Unreal. You know, we were talking earlier. You know, you almost expect something like this to happen at one point, but when it does, it's absolutely shocking. This should never in a million years happen, but your person is always afraid for them that something like this is going to happen. Every time they do something like this, they are putting their lives in everybody's hands.
I want the strikers like that.
I did too. I saw it on the gun. Yep.
Okay, we've seen that, so I won't go over it again.
Yeah, listen, we have a couple of.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I can't find it.
Okay. Did you check in your pocket?
Several times. Oh, trust me, that's why. That's it. Dr. Ruth.
So that update should be coming right away, or that message from President Biden. 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. So that is his family's home that is being spotlighted there by the news8.com. In a statement, the FBI said the FBI has identified Thomas Matthew Crooks, 20, of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, as the subject involved in the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. And they are still looking for that motive. He has no foreign terrorism ties known at this time, and he was not on the radar as far as law enforcement goes. Strange looking young man. Those eyes again, right? Those eyes. So they are going through his residence. And again, they found that device in his vehicle that could have been an explosive. Registered as a Republican voter. Previously made a $15 donation to a Democratic aligned group. Bethel Park School District confirmed that Crooks was a 2022 graduate of Bethel Parks High. School officials pledged to work with law enforcement investigating the hooting and offered condolences to those affected by the attack. Biden's a little bit behind. Hope he didn't fall down and hurt himself.
Or net.
And we understand he has no military training.
That's right.
But we've also learned that the shooter's father bought this AR-15 that was used
Legally, and it was registered in his name. These kinds of weapons are legal in the state of Pennsylvania.
Jesus.
And so this is reminiscent of some other cases, like in the Michigan shooting, where the gun was purchased by a parent of the shooter. So this is not without precedent. And we're looking at the profile. Here is a young man that is typically the profile of someone who carries out political violence, or even just in the broader scope of mass shootings in a public area like this. That does fit the profile generally. More than 50% of the perpetrators of these acts are young men, generally young white men, and he fits that profile. CBS News has spoken to some former classmates of his who described him as a loner, say that he was bullied, and that he would wear hunting gear to class. So we're starting to kind of paint a picture. And what investigators are doing now is they're creating a profile, looking for motive, and also creating a timeline of everything that led up to the shooting. We're looking back months, weeks, days, hours, and minutes.
And Anna, you mentioned the Oxford, Michigan school shooting and the parents. They are currently
Yep.
serving prison sentences for repeatedly ignoring these warning signs and not securing the weapon. I'm wondering if you can tell us more, because this was a legally purchased weapon in Pennsylvania. What are the legal obligations of parents when they purchase a weapon that's used in a crime like this?
Come on. This is what I was wondering. You know, this is what I basically expected after the Crumley verdicts, that parents are going to be accountable. Even if this kid is 20, they're talking about the parents.
Investigators are mining social media. The shooter did have a Discord account, which is a social media platform. Discord put out a statement saying that he rarely used it, and according to their own internal investigation, did not point to any planning that he did on Discord. But I think in the hours and tomorrow, we're going to learn a lot more about a potential red flag, if there was one that was missed, or multiple red flags.
And it seems like in so many ways this matches other profiles of mass shooters that we've seen, but in some ways, not having a big social media presence, it's different. We also understand that he was registered as a Republican, but maybe made a donation to a Democratic affiliated group. As investigators are trying to piece together a potential motive, what are they looking for? What can we glean from the information that we found out so far?
And then the ballot box. And that's the reason why. That's a great question. Should have sent all this? Okay, great question. Participating in the political process. If anything should motivate us.
Can't hear him very clearly.
I assure you that on Staten Island, we have adequate police, we support the police department, we have enough police officers that live on Staten Island, off duty.
Okay, let me see here. We're still waiting on Biden. 10 minutes later. Wow, you guys.
And cause that person to try to take a candidate or a president's life in its own hands.
Michael, I want to share that the White House is now rescheduling tomorrow's event, the speech that the president is going to give at the LBJ Library, as you know so well. You spent years there. You wrote books on
yes, indeed,
that presidency. And this would have been commemorating the civil rights legislation that was memorably passed that summer, 40 years. How many years ago was it?
60 years ago this month.
60 years.
Yeah.
After a filibuster that lasted for months in the Senate. So that's being rescheduled. It will take place. Presumably also the interview with Lester Holt, understandably.
Sure.
But the assassinations, they happen during such a significant time of division in America. How do these events, how do they affect LBJ?
How did the National Convention just
the outcome
hours
of
away? How will the
1968?
event
Again,
change
the
in the
convention
aftermath of
that summer was
yesterday's
in
shooting?
Chicago, as the Democratic
Sure.
Convention will be this year.
Richard Nixon even said himself he would not have been elected without the violence of 1968. He probably would not have defeated Robert Kennedy if Kennedy had lived and won the Democratic nomination. Nixon also felt that he could not have won without the violence in the streets of Chicago between anti-war protesters and the Chicago police. So that shows where violence actually did change American history. But so does nonviolence. I love the fact that you refer to the Civil Rights Act, which was signed by LBJ on the 2nd of July, 1964, exactly 60 years ago. That was a result of a nonviolent movement. Martin Luther King in the 1950s went against many leaders who said the only way to get rights for Black Americans hasn't happened for all these decades is going to be violence and scaring white people. Instead, King said, let's use the theories of Mahatma Gandhi and let's do it nonviolently and see if our American system really works. And as a result, because of nonviolent protest mainly, and
froze up, guys.
literacy tests that kept Black Americans from voting. And then you were asking about 1968. In 1968, despite the assassinations, or maybe even because of the uproar over them, LBJ was able to get two things: a modest gun safety bill and also a fair housing act, which meant that you can live in whatever area of any city you want. You know, in Washington, D.C., as you and I have discussed before 1968, there were many places in D.C. that Jewish people or Black people or Middle Easterners could not buy a house because LBJ was on the case. That changed.
Michael Beschloss, your insights are invaluable. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Especially to you. And we'll be right back with a lot more about the attempted assassination on former President Trump. Stay with us.
So, guys, I think I'll put this on until we hear from Biden.
And clearly, it is not the right that is calling Donald Trump Hitler. It is not the right trying to put Donald Trump in jail. It is not the right trying to prevent Donald Trump from becoming the next president. When you call somebody Hitler, which has been repeated over and over.
Were you wondering what that sound was, Pam? That's a skinny pig squeaking out his dad.
There are impressionable, deranged people, sadly, out there. And if you convince one of them that Hitler or a person who's trying to destroy your country is attempting to become president, you might get the idea that this shooter obviously got last night.
I'm surprised you don't feel like you're getting ahead of yourself because we don't know this guy. You're suggesting that he was motivated by some sort of political ideology. Perhaps it's not political in motivation at all. I mean, maybe this is a press conference you might want to have in a couple of days.
Yeah, listen, we have a couple of months. We have a few months to an election that will determine who the leader of the free world is. As I said, I think it's too late to ask questions, obviously. I think it's too late to do what President Obama suggested last night that we need to do, and I think we should listen to him, which is we need to get rid of this hate rhetoric. Former President Obama believes that is what has contributed to this, obviously, or wouldn't have said that. Every former president last night said this kind of hatred. They said violence has no place in politics, nor does hatred. nor does the demonization of your political opponent, nor does the weaponization of the
We
full
actually just
force of the
spoke
government
with the
against your
mayor of
political opponent. They've arrested him.
Let's check this out, guys.
the mayor told us that the city is secure. He told us that Milwaukee is probably one of the safest places you can be, considering all of the security in place here. Previous to the convention being kicked off and as it was being planned, he had asked for additional resources and funding to secure the city, and he got that. We should also note that when it comes to the security perimeter of the RNC, that is under the jurisdiction of the Secret Service. So they are responsible for that security. But of course, Milwaukee is responsible for all of the areas outside. I should also note that there is a notable dynamic with regards to Milwaukee, Wisconsin law and the security perimeter. In Wisconsin, it's an open carry state, and in the area just outside the perimeter, you are allowed to carry a firearm. And that is the question that we have moving forward, is whether the perimeter will expand beyond its current state. The Secret Service, of course, is in charge of that, and firearms are not allowed in that perimeter. But just outside what is called a yellow zone or a soft zone, just outside that security perimeter is where firearms are, at least currently, allowed. So that's something to keep an eye on coming over the next couple of hours. But of course, the mayor said that they are at the highest level of security. He is encouraging people to still come here, to be safe, insisting that everyone will be safe, that you can still visit restaurants, enjoy all the trappings of Milwaukee as one normally would, and so not to be deterred from coming here and enjoying the city. He said that it is as safe as ever.
And Caitlin, President Biden has been briefed. He condemned the attacks publicly. We see on social media the former president saying, quote, "It is more important than ever that we stand united and show our true character as Americans." Prior to this assassination attempt, both of the candidates were really going at each other. How does this change the campaign moving forward for both candidates?
It raises all sorts of questions, Lana, about how you can possibly continue a campaign at the level that we had seen moving forward. We talk about this all the time.
Indicted him, they've tried him, they've convicted him. So I don't think it's too early to ask those questions. And as I said, I think we're allowed to use our common sense to say, or to ask the questions, hey, is there something that's happening in society that contributes to this type of thing? And we do know his motive. It's obvious to anyone. I was a former prosecutor in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. His motive is clear. He tried to assassinate the leading candidate for the presidency of the United States. Now, I think it's appropriate that we ask, what led that deranged, demonic human being to that point? And every former president, yeah,
they did not get it.
Every former president. If you don't believe me, listen to President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama. Listen to them. Listen to President Biden last night.
We're not aware of any.
We've got to get the hate out. They must be saying that because they believe the hate contributed to what happened last night.
I'm wondering what you guys are thinking about the contribution that Donald Trump has played in this. I mean, none of you have spoken about that.
What are you suggesting? That
hate.
So we're just waiting for President Biden to give his remarks on what happened last night. A little bit late. He was supposed to start about 20 minutes ago. So we'll get this update and let's see what we got here. I'm trying to avoid getting into these really large political conversations. and focus more on what happened.
Clear. It was always expected that the former president would address the convention at various other intervals as well, pop up in various places, pop up potentially on the first night of the convention, pop up on subsequent nights as well, and then, of course, give his big primetime address on Thursday night. Now, after these events of the last few hours and the obvious resolve of the Trump campaign to show that the former president is resilient and show that he's doing well, to mimic that image that you saw in that rally of him putting his fist up in resolve and saying to his supporters that he's okay, it's unclear how that's going to impact the convention, but you can expect it to impact the convention.
Jade, could it also impact the messaging of the convention now that this happened?
Well, certainly, I already have seen it impact the messaging from Republicans who are going to attend this convention, and high-profile Republicans like, for instance, House Speaker Mike Johnson, like J.D. Vance, who's in the short list for Trump's vice presidential contenders and things of that nature. It has already somewhat started to impact the general tone of these RNC attendees, who just a few days ago were going into this convention saying that they were going to make one message. The general tone of this convention was "Make America Great Again." It was based on that Trump tagline. Each night had a theme. Monday was supposed to be "Make America Wealthy Again." Tuesday is supposed to be "Make America Safe Again." And the list goes on and on and on. And while you can expect that messaging to still take shape in some form over the next few days here, obviously, this assassination attempt on Trump is going to ripple outwards and impact the messaging of this convention beyond what was already planned. Again, there were GOP lawmakers, GOP notables, members of the Trump family who had their speeches already written for this convention. I've talked to some GOP lawmakers who knew that what they were going to say at this convention, who you can imagine are changing the tone of what they're going to say because of the events of the last 24 hours. They're absolutely going to impact what's going to happen here.
And Jay, we're now learning that after not being invited by former President Trump, that former GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley is going to speak at the RNC. Now, these two were pretty bitter political rivals until just a few months ago. Haley was the last other presidential hopeful to stay in the race, competing against former President Trump for the primary. What do you make of that, her decision to now, or his decision to now speak at the RNC?
It's kind of a broader arc as we've seen. We've seen in the last few months this question really hang over Trump as to how he was going to embrace or not his GOP political rivals who ran against him for the nomination. Just a few weeks ago, there was this open question as to whether or not Ron DeSantis would address this convention. And it was questioned as to whether or not he had a scheduling conflict. Originally, he wasn't on the list of speakers. And then, according to sources who tell me, he is now going to speak at this convention. And now, of course, this breaking news as it relates to Nikki Haley. This has really hung over Trump for quite some time. How is he going to bring in voters who voted potentially for someone else in the primary? And I've talked to Republicans who acknowledge that Ron DeSantis voters, for instance, are much more likely to be Trump voters. But Nikki Haley voters, more moderates in the party typically, it was a question as to whether or not Trump would reach out to them, create an olive branch to him when he became the presumptive GOP nominee. And that question has dogged him for weeks and months at this point. And now this option, or rather this decision, to bring Nikki Haley in, to have her speak at the RNC, speaks to a potential broader theme of if Trump is going to reach out to those voters eventually and try to turn those Haley voters into Trump voters.
Jay, we're also still waiting on a VP pick from the former president. That's part of the reason we were live on the air yesterday as this rally was happening. We were waiting to see, is he going to say something about a potential vice presidential pick? He has said that he was going to name that person before the Republican National Convention or in time for it. What happens with that now?
Well, what Trump has said is that he either wants to your point, announce this VP pick slightly before the convention, or at minimum in the early days of the convention. There was always been this issue as to whether or not the Trump campaign would frankly even be able to hold on to this decision once it was made, or if it would leak out or not. We know that there are 3 contenders who are on the short list. J.D. Vance, who I mentioned earlier, Republican Senator of Ohio, Marco Rubio, Republican Senator of Florida, and Doug Burgum, Governor of North Dakota. Those are the 3 known to be on Trump's short list. And it's unclear if he's made a decision as to who his VP pick would be, but you're exactly right, Diane. All eyes were on that Trump rally yesterday in Pennsylvania to see if he would either A, announce his pick, or B, just let something slip about the nature of the pick And then, of course, it was chaotic in the aftermath of that, and the news environment.
Okay, still waiting for Biden. So it says here from CNN, firefighter Corey Compertor was deleted during the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. Compertor was one of the thousands of people who attended the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. He died trying to protect his family, according to the governor. Authorities identified the gunman on Saturday's attack, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, who was deleted by a Secret Service agent at the scene after the hooting. The FBI is investigating the attack as an assassination attempt. Well, yes. It says here, I just spoke to Corey's wife and Corey's 2 daughters. Corey was a dad girl. Corey was a firefighter. Corey went to church every Sunday. Corey loved his community. Most especially, Corey loved his family. Corey was an avid supporter of the former president and was so excited to be there last night with him in the community, the governor said. I asked Corey's wife if it would be okay for me to share that we spoke, and she said yes. She also asked that I share with all of you that Corey passed as a hero. Corey dove on his family to protect them at last night's rally. Shapiro said he has directed flags to be flown at half-staff in Compertor's memory. 1 person deleted and 2 critically injured in the incident, according to Pennsylvania State Police. The former president was grazed by the bullet to the ear, he said on social media, leaving his face covered in DNA. Witnesses have described a wave of chaos and terror that unfolded after the hooter perched on a rooftop just outside of the venue, fired several shots from an AR-styled weapon. So what I'm not really understanding as far as the Secret Service protecting Donald Trump, why were they not on this building? If that guy could use this weapon to delete and harm people at that distance, then why were they not on that roof? As shots rang out, the former president ducked below the podium and was swarmed by Secret Service agents as attendees screamed and crouched towards the ground. GOP Congressman Dan Muser told CNN he was sitting in the front row of Trump's rally with Pennsylvania Senate candidate Dave McCormick and Republican Representative Mike Kelly. He said he saw a man fatally shot no more than 20 feet behind them. Everybody started screaming, asking for a medic, and honestly, it was a bloody scene. You guys. One young man that was extremely messed up caused a lot of harm. Let's see, there's so much. Oh, my word. So they are still protecting that house to, while they're investigating it to see what else they can find about Thomas Crooks. You know, Trump absolutely amazed me last night, I have to say. This happened. Up after this happening, pumps up his arm and says, "Fight, fight, fight," and was asking for his shoes. Get my shoes. Where are my shoes? The way he handled it, to me, was quite impressive, I do have to say. It is very sad. I haven't heard anything yet on the other two. Am I frozen again? I'm frozen again. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I'm going to refresh this. Okay, let's see. I keep freezing up. It just went wild last night. Oh my word. So I don't know. Is Biden going to come up and speak? Oh, you know, this is the kind of stuff I was worried about. This is in USA Today. Citing his recent comments, Republicans blame Joe Biden for Donald Trump rally. Number of Republicans are pointing fingers at President Joe Biden after the hooting of former President Donald Trump. You know what? I don't believe that. I have a hard time believing that. While we're waiting, let's take a look at this.
All the agencies in the federal government.
This is from last night.
Based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to him shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to, if it's not convenient for you all. The bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. I mean, everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I'm able to speak to Donald,
He's going to call him the
let
president.
you know that as well. So far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that there's thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do. Okay? I don't know enough to. I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments. Thank you.
There we go. All righty. Let me see what else we can find while we're waiting.
An issue that we see in the ongoing response to Hurricane Beryl. Our life.
Still lots going on with Hurricane Beryl, too. That created a big mess all through the country, didn't it? We've watched this earlier. Let's check it out again for those who are new. Just
joining us now, NBC News correspondent Adrian brought us at the scene of last night's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian, who's covering the investigation. NBC News White House correspondent Ali Rafa, following the latest reaction from the White House, and New York Times chief White House correspondent and MSNBC political analyst Peter Baker. So, Peter, I'm going to start with you because we're going to get a speech from the president in just a moment. We got a 2-minute warning. What are we expecting to hear from him today?
Well, the president's been briefed today in the Situation Room by aides and law enforcement authorities about what is known about this case. He flew back from Delaware last night. He wasn't planning to be at the White House today, but he decided to return to deal with this crisis, and he, in fact, has canceled his trip to Texas tomorrow, which he had planned to take. We expect him to talk about violence, and no doubt he will, again, as he did last night, condemn the attack and talk a little bit about having spoken with Donald Trump last night when he reached out to offer his best wishes.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Kate Snow.
Good day, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news. President Biden is about to address the nation in the wake of the assassination attempt on former President Trump. As we await the president, here's what we know right now. The shooter has now been identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. He was killed immediately after firing at the former president during that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania last night. Investigators have been at the suspect's house this morning. Mr. Trump was injured in the shooting. He says a bullet hit one of his ears. He was treated, and the campaign now says he is fine. In a video posted last night, you can see Mr. Trump walking down the stairs of his airplane. We have learned more about the father who was killed at the rally yesterday. The governor of Pennsylvania is saying that man died protecting his family. 2 more were seriously injured and are still in critical condition. In an address late last night, President Biden did speak, but he is about to approach the podium now. So let's go to President Biden.
Good afternoon. Last night, I spoke with Donald Trump. I'm sincerely grateful that he's doing well and recovering. We had a short but good conversation. Jill and I are keeping him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victim who was killed. Last night, he was a father. He was protecting his family from the bullets that were being fired. And he lost his life. God love him. We're also planning for the full recovery of those who were injured. We're grateful to the Secret Service agents and other law enforcement agencies and individuals who risk their lives literally for our nation. As I said last night, there's no place in America for this kind of violence or any violence for that matter. An assassination attempt is contrary to everything we stand for as a nation, everything. It's not who we are as a nation. It's not America. And we cannot allow this to happen. Unity is the most elusive goal of all, but nothing is important than that right now, unity. We'll debate and we'll disagree. That's not going to change, but we're going to not lose sight of the fact who we are as Americans. Look, Vice President Harris and I were just briefed in the Situation Room by my Homeland Security team, including the Director of the FBI, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Attorney General, the Director of the Secret Service, my Homeland Security Advisor, the National Security Advisor.
Wow.
And we're going to continue to be briefed. The FBI is leading this investigation, which is still in its early stages. We don't yet have any information about the motive of the shooter. We know who he is. I urge everyone, please, don't make assumptions about his motives or his affiliations. Let the FBI do their job and their partner agencies do their job. I'm instructed that this investigation be thorough and swift, and the investigators will have every resource they need to get this done. Look, as this investigation continues, here's what we're going to do. First, Mr. Trump, as a former president and nominee of the Republican Party, already receives a heightened level of security. And I've been consistent in my direction to the Secret Service to provide him with every resource, capability, and protective measure necessary to ensure his continued safety. Second, I've directed the head of the Secret Service to review all security measures for the Republican National Convention, which is scheduled to start tomorrow. And third, I've directed an independent review of national security at yesterday's rally to assess exactly what happened. And we'll share the results of that independent review with the American people as well. And finally, I'll be speaking more about this tonight at greater length from the Oval Office. We must unite as one nation. We must unite as one nation to demonstrate who we are. And so may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, when you spoke to President Trump yesterday.
All right, the President of the United States addressing the nation there briefly and promising more from the Oval Office tonight. Let me bring in NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez, who's been listening along with us. Gabe, he said there is no place in America for this kind of violence. It's contrary to everything we stand for as a nation.
Yes, that's right, Kate. And his message of unity, which we heard right there. And yes, the president saying that he will address the nation once again tonight from the Oval Office. He also said, Kate, that he spoke with former President Trump and he gave condolences to the family of the victim who died. Now, Kate, this all comes after the president spoke with his national security advisors earlier today for much of the morning in the Situation Room. He mentioned that he spoke with the FBI director, the Homeland Security Secretary as well. But this all comes among the greater context of the campaign as well, Kate. We just learned a short time ago that this is already affecting the president's official travel, which was scheduled for tomorrow. He was supposed to travel to Austin, Texas to speak at the LBJ Library. We've also learned just a short time ago that his previously scheduled interview with our colleague Lester Holt has now been moved here to Washington. We also know that the vice president, the campaign saying that her planned travel to Florida on Tuesday has also been rescheduled. But again, Kate, we're just hearing from the president some very forceful remarks on the need for this country to come together and promising more tonight from the Oval Office. Kate?
Gabe Gutierrez at the White House for us. Gabe, thank you.
Yeah.
That will conclude this special report. But
There we go, guys. I think that's where we're at as far as updates go right now. I'll play it by ear as to whether or not what a mess, as to whether or not I stream something more this evening, see what comes out. But for now, I'm going to leave it there. So I do appreciate you guys joining me. I really appreciate you guys joining me. And subscribe, like, share, and join us for the next one. Bye, friends.
Dun 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 dun.